Hello! Today I want to speak of someone who is very interesting, who has a message that goes very deep into his subject. But when you go very deep in a subject, I realized a long time ago already that comes back to the same limits, the same problems, and so the same solutions for anything you want to do, you want to invest in, you want to improve, you want to change. Okay, and this man is Seth Godin. He's a very famous entrepreneur, yes, but marketer especially, and he speaks about marketing, entrepreneurship, and anything that relates to growing a business. Okay, his message is very, very deep, and basically you can listen to this video, watch them, and it's very, very interesting, and he tackles the subject in any way, but in many ways. But basically the message is, okay, if you want to bring some value and and you won't fear the competition, then you have to bring a personal value. If you want to bring a personal value, you have to expose yourself, to bring something very personal. And if that's personal, you're going to expose yourself personally. And if you expose yourself personally, obviously you'll have people who will like that and others who won't like it. So you expose yourself to being rejected, to criticism, and that is what we fear most of the time. We are just frightened by this fear of, I would say, being different, so being criticized, being rejected. That's I think that's a fear we all have within us very deeply. And that the message is already very good for marketing and entrepreneurship, but it's also very good for anything in our life. So he goes deeper. He says that if you, what matters most is what you bring, and it has to be so personal, so that it's different from others, and that only you can bring that. And this an important key he gives is that what is important is to connect to others, connecting to people. And the value, I would say, basically is already to be able to connect personally to others. So the message is very, very interesting, and it comes back to the fear we have when we want to change something to improve our life, because we are going to change something to be perceived differently, and certainly to be criticized, especially by people who don't move. We all know that. Anyway, so there is a point I would like to add to that. We all have an image of ourselves, and we want to be perceived a certain way. And even if we don't necessarily realize that, we act differently, we behave differently, depending on if there is people around us or if we are on our own, and also depending on the people who are around us, because we want to be perceived a certain way depending on the persons who are around us. It should be more or less obvious, I think, to everyone, because that's what we all do. The problem is that this image is in danger if we want to change, especially if we want to do something new. And when we want to create, to do something new, to change, to evolve, obviously we'll make mistakes. We don't know if it's going to work, and but that's normal. That's part of the process completely, because we know that the best way to learn something, to improve something, is by trial and error. So yes, we are going to stumble sometimes. Yes, maybe many times. The more we act, the more we are likely to stumble, and the more we evolve, and the more we improve our life in any area. So that's really the key part. But we are going to be seen stumbling. We are going to be criticized. We are going to be perceived differently than the image we have of ourselves. That's obvious, and we are going to be perceived differently, but actually it will certainly be much better than how we are perceived when we don't move. But in our mind, that's a big story, that's a big problem. And really, the fear, I think, is based on the story we tell to ourselves, first of all, of who I am, how I have to be perceived, and so on. And if I move, the danger is for this image to not survive. That's, I think, that comes back to this for anything that we want to do. So when we realize that, and when we realize that if we want to improve, you can listen to everyone. Seth Godin is the first to say he has been rejected, I think, 900 times when he wanted, I think, to publish a book. I think it was 900 times. It was just so considerable. And that's why his message is so important, because he has been very successful. But first of all, he admits that he has been rejected a lot of time, and he's still very criticized. In the same time, he's a best-selling author. So that's really a key part to understand. Being successful means you are going to expose yourself, especially if you really want to do something that matters to you anyway. Anything that matters to ourselves is something personal. It's not something that everyone does. It's just ourselves. We are unique. We want to do something that relates personally to ourselves, and so we are going to expose ourselves and to show us a certain way, to show our work. And if we want to evolve, we are going to stumble, and that's part of the process. And so some of the people are going to criticize ourselves. We are going to be rejected by some of them, and all that is just part of the process. But in the same time, obviously, we are going to be a lot of things very important. And if we are just able to know that in the process, we are going to have different things, good and bad, but that's part of the process. That's not necessarily bad. It's mainly how we perceive that, and that the image of someone who is perfect in a way, who is great, that we have ourselves, and I'm going to do that, and it's going to be great in all the aspects of the project, and it's not wrong. We're going to experience this path to climb a step at a time, and it's going to be great. But we're not great in any area all the time at all. The thing that we are able to move on, to experiment, and to climb the steps is the great part. It's when we will feel very confident about it, when we are in the action and climbing the step. But we have to let this image die in a way, because that's really a feeling of real danger, and it always comes back to a danger of death. But for this image of ourselves, that's a danger of death, really. But it's just in our mind. Once again, if we realize that, it's much more easy to move on, to expose ourselves, and that's exactly when we are good, even though we are not good at everything every time. But the process is just very good when we are able to do that, and then we can move on, improve our life in any area. So I really encourage you to listen to Seth Godin, because his message goes far beyond just entrepreneurship and marketing, and he has a lot of ways to explain all that. It's very important, and I really think that's the core part of any improvement in our life, any limits we have, and we must understand where is the real limit. It's just a perceived limit, and how to handle that, and how to move on and be really successful. So as always, let me know what you think of that. It's really interesting, and I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye.